Oh boy, watch out, boys. The contrarian train is coming through. Choo choo. I've seen a lot of reviews about this movie. Now, I like to watch and read reviews after we watch something or I watch something just to get an idea, kind of, gauge, get a barometer for where people are at. And I hate to be that guy, but I'm not sure if people really got this movie based on some of the stuff that I'm reading about it. Because damn.
I know these rules can feel constraining, but remember, the point of this course is to learn how to write clearly and persuasively. Think about that. Think about the truth of your argument.
Once I started reading reviews about how it was fat phobic, I was like, yeah, okay, I'm done reading reviews. I don't want to read anymore.
Well, thankfully, I didn't see anything like that. I did hear that was like controversy, that it's like, fat phobic or body shaming and all this stuff. That's just, I think, annoying people being annoying.
Yeah.
And you'll always get that. I didn't see any of that. The thing that I saw was just a lot of just like people talking about the story that just didn't really seem to get it. They took it at like face value.
There wasn't really much of a plot to this movie. I feel like there was story and there was like, but it wasn't really like it was like a very loose plot, it seemed like, I think so.
Well, the plot is the last week of
basically
an obese man. The last week with an obese man is basically the plot.
Well, just a man. So this is The Whale, directed by Darren Aronofsky. It's been making a lot of noise. Obviously, it's nominated for like 1 million awards. Brendan Fraser is the star of this film, alongside Sadie Sink from
Running Up That Hill.
Yeah, from Stranger Things. We got Hong Chau, Ty Simpkins, and Samantha Morton. This movie's been getting a lot of hype because of Brendan Fraser's performance, rightfully so. We'll go into the performances.
You're an amazing person, Ellie. I couldn't ask for a more incredible daughter.
Are you actually trying to parent me right now?
Who would want me to be a part of their life?
I don't think this movie, like a lot of people talking about this movie like it's about an obese man. His obesity doesn't really have anything to do with the movie. And I know it sounds strange to say.
It does, though.
Well, it does, but not in the way that people are discussing it. Like, the movie is not about an obese man. The movie's about grief.
Yeah, and dealing with addiction.
Yes.
Well, he's in the situation he's in because he's obese. It's his last week because he's obese. So it is about an obese man and his last days. But the story that you see through the different character and his interactions, him being obese has little to do with it except for maybe getting around the house. Sometimes.
I guess what I'm trying to say is that I don't, at least in my interpretation of it, the movie is really not about his obesity at all. Like Marvin said, it's about addiction. Well, it's not even about addiction. Addiction is just like the vehicle for, because this movie's about grief, and it's about how
coping.
It's about how people deal with grief in various different ways. Each character has their own way of dealing with something like that, or trauma in general. And his obesity,
because everybody in the movie is coping with some sort of
absolutely
issue.
And his obesity could be, you could throw anything into that. You could throw drug use, alcoholism, really anything, gambling, sex. People are talking about this movie as if it's about obesity and him being obese. And I was like, wait, what? Like, what the fuck movie did you watch? To what you're saying is, he's dealing with the grief of, hey, I was living a fake life. I got married to a woman as a gay man. I fell in love with a man. I left my wife and my child because I was in love with another person.
That happens.
Has just an immense amount. I'm sure has just an immense amount of guilt and remorse for doing that, and he's also grieving the loss of the love of his life, which is his partner. Sadie Sink's character Ellie, his daughter. She's dealing with the fact that her father left her at the age of 8 years old. So she grew up without a father. I think they say in the movie he's been gone for 8 years. They hadn't seen each other in 8 years. So she's 16 in the film. And she's dealing with an alcoholic mother, which brings us to Samantha Morton's character, Mary, which is his ex-wife and her mom. And she's grieving the fact that her husband, who she probably loved, because there's a scene later on in the movie where they're like kind of reminiscing.
Yep.
She loved him and they had a wonderful life together, it seemed. And he left her. So she's dealing with that with alcoholism. We've got Chau, who's Liz, and she's grieving the loss of her brother, who was the partner of Charlie, our main character.
Yeah. Yep. And also watching Charlie fall down the same.
Yeah. But she's also an enabler. Because while she's frustrated with him that he doesn't want to get the help and care that he needs, she's feeding him fucking meatball subs and fucking all sorts of crazy shit. Like she's an enabler.
She definitely is an enabler. That's how she copes.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. Because guess what? She talks about it a lot during the movie. We'll get into it a little bit more, but she lost her brother, but she tried to hold on to him and prevent him from doing what he did.
Sorry.
You say you're sorry one more time, I will shove a knife right into you. I swear to God.
Go ahead. What's it gonna do? My internal organs are 2 feet in at least.
And then Ty Simpkins' character, Thomas, he's this traveling evangelical trying to spread the word of Christ, LOL. And he is dealing with his own, his isn't really a grief sort of thing. His is just more of like a,
he technically lost his life, like his life as it was. Yeah, it's also like not just grieving, but everyone's kind of like living a lie, I think. Especially this guy. I think the other characters are too, though. Like Sadie's like she's like almost forcing herself to be detached from the world.
Who? Oh, Sadie Sink, Ellie.
Sorry, Ellie.
I was like, wait a second, what?
So she's like forcing herself to be detached from the world when she kind of seems like a caring person and someone that is looking for like friendship. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Because of how quickly she attaches to our boy Thomas.
You know, he's trying to reconnect with his daughter, and you mentioned that everybody is sort of has this like facade that they're putting on. His is clearly he's embarrassed of the way he looks. He hides his camera, his webcam when he's doing his online teaching. He has a pizza guy take money out of the mailbox and like leave the pizza outside. He doesn't want to show himself. Ellie, in the same way, I think she's got this like tough guy facade. Later in the film, her mother, Mary, is saying like she's evil. She's a monster. Like her goal is to just hurt people. And there's certain things that she does in the film. She's taking pictures of him and posting nasty shit on Facebook. You know, she recorded fucking Thomas's character of him admitting to like the shit that he did. And she's like sending it to his church and parents back home to try to get him in trouble. But that tough guy facade, you know, we all know that's just,
she's pushing people away so that she doesn't have to feel the pain of the hurt of like her dad leaving her was traumatic. And
absolutely.
You push people away or keep them at arm's length. And that's what she does with her social media posts is she's basically living vicariously by watching their lives at a distance.
What you said, Marvin, this movie doesn't really have a plot. I did feel that throughout the movie. And by the time I was ended, I was like, what is this fucking about? Like, all right, I get it. I get the melodrama of the movie. Like, I get the story. Like, I get it all. But, like, really, what is it? Like, what did I watch here? Like, and I still don't even really know. So I have my own interpretation. And again, knowing how Darren Aronofsky makes his movies, I think a lot of this movie was meant to be open for interpretation. But then a little part of me thinks maybe not, because the movie opens up sort of telling you what the fuck the movie is going to be about when he's talking to his students. He's talking about writing and how to like break through and teaching them how to like not just look at the surface level stuff, but really see what's underneath. And I think that's what a lot of people who have read the reviews didn't do. And they like most movies, most stories, they'll tell you what the shit's about within the first couple of minutes. Yeah. And I think this did that. I think he's saying like, hey, there's a lot of like subtext here. Like, just look beyond the surface level shit. That's why I said I don't think this movie's about an obese guy. Yeah. Really. Like, it's not about that. It's about grief and how various people deal with it.
Human interaction and human emotion is really what you experience it as you watch it.
Yeah, and there are some things that are lost on me too, like the symbolism with the bird. You know, there's several scenes he leaves a plate out for a bird and he fills it up with like apple slices every so often, and the bird comes and eats it. By the end of the movie, the plate is broken, and he realizes like, oh, like it's like shattered and disgusting. So at one point I was like, wait, was this all like in his head? Like I didn't really quite understand that. But really at the end of the day, this is his story of redemption and like doing what he felt he needed to do, which is make up for what he did.
Why do you suddenly need to see her so bad? Why now?
Liz, I'm worried that she's forgotten what an amazing person she is. I need to know that she's gonna have a decent life where she cares about people and that she's gonna be okay.
You know, we mentioned that it's based on a play, and this is where like kind of I was a little bit bothered by this movie is that it's shot like a play.
Yeah, all in the apartment. Well, they kept calling it an apartment, but it looks like a fucking house.
Yeah, so
It's an apartment.
So Dusty, you said how did I like the 4:3 aspect ratio? I did like it because with the 4:3 aspect ratio, the murky lighting, it all leads to like this claustrophobic feeling. It's all shot in his apartment. I think you only leave his apartment to the porch for like 2 scenes.
And the flashbacks, yeah.
But it's very clear Darren Aronofsky doesn't want you to feel comfortable. And then, you know, you have the performance by Brendan Fraser that really doesn't let you off the hook either in terms of like emotionally. Like he makes you feel fucked up a lot of times throughout the movie.
You know, it's definitely hard to describe exactly all the feelings I felt watching this movie. If I had to put words to it, probably some feelings of empathy, sympathy, frankly, disgust. I mean, I know it sounds mean, but
no,
I'm sure it was intentional to evoke these feelings as outsiders looking in. I think it showed a bunch of truths that we don't like to see as outsiders, like whether it be an obese person or whether it be a drug addict or whatever it is. When you are that close to them, it's very uncomfortable to watch and to even like think of them as humans when you're that close. If you know, but I think the movie did a good job of showing us his human side, even though we might think of him as like, you know, this disgusting person or whatever initially, which I think that's just like your brain doing whatever your brain does, right? It doesn't make you a bad person to have that type of feeling initially when you see something that you're not used to seeing.
I don't know. I never really saw him as disgusting. I think that's where the controversy.
What about that last bench scene? That was
that in and of itself was disgusting. Anybody doing it would be disgusting.
Yeah.
But I think that's where the controversy is coming in a little bit because people are like, well, there are scenes that like legitimately are meant to make you be like, ew, fuck, like that's gross.
Yeah.
But
I was wincing like I was watching Saw or some shit when he was fucking.
Yeah, but I didn't like that about the movie because like the whole time I'm like, for me personally, like I am like, I understand, like I empathize with why he let his life get this way. And I understand, like I said it earlier, it doesn't have to be obesity. It could be anything.
Yeah, that's what I said. It could be a fucking drug guy, whatever. I mean, it's like, I think what I'm trying to say is like, it's okay to initially have this feeling as long as you are able to have a change of thought or something like.
Well, I don't think the movie gives you the opportunity to do that. Because
I don't think that's true.
Because they specifically frame him as a disgusting slob, basically.
Yeah.
Like I don't think there's ever a moment where like I don't know, sometimes it just felt to me like they're leading you to feel like, well, I mean, he fucking doesn't want to get help, so he deserves to die, like in that type of mindset.
I don't think so. I think they show you, like I said, you feel these things initially, but if you spend enough time with someone, as you do in movies, I guess, for example, like you'll eventually have some type of compassion, I would think, or you're just like a psychopath. Like that's the way I see it, at least.
Well, I mean, again, I think like on purpose, the movie like presents him as a sideshow at certain points.
Yeah, for sure.
Maybe that was an attempt to like challenge the audience to see beyond that. Again, if the initial conversation he's having with his students was any indication, then yes, it is challenging you to kind of see past like the surface level stuff.
Yeah.
For all the characters, for all of them, for him, like beyond the obesity, it's a very caring and warm individual who's just trying to right some wrongs he did in his life. You know, through Ellie's fucking harsh, fucking, quite frankly, annoying behavior throughout the movie. Like there's a girl who's just missed her dad, you know, and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, no, I'm not fully disagreeing with what you said, but I do also understand why some people might be a little bit annoyed by that. But
well,
again, like I said, real quick, Darren Aronofsky's not very. He's not subtle at all. So like he will show you those things of like fucking a dude like eating 3 pizzas stacked together and like fucking all this disgusting shit. And again, that's disgusting for anybody to do it. I weigh 130 pounds and it would be disgusting if I was doing it, you know?
Yeah.
What were you going to say, Dusty? I'm sorry.
I think, I mean, Marlon was talking about the range of emotions that he felt. I think that's kind of one of the points of the movie is to show you and make you feel these wide, like the pendulum of emotions. Like you feel disgusted at one point, you feel charmed, you feel happy, you feel sad, you know, you feel despair, you feel hope. Like it hits you like with every rainbow of range of all the emotions.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what I
that's
felt.
mostly what it's trying to show us is just, these are just people experiencing life.
Yeah. I'll tell you what I felt. This movie gave me fucking chest pains. This whole fucking time, this dude's fucking got congestive heart failure and he's wheezing. And it's like, I'm feeling that shit because I am somebody that has a little bit of health anxiety. And anytime I feel like the slightest ping or pang in my body, I'm like, oh, fuck, here it comes. This is it. This is the big one.
Read it to me. Read it.
Yeah,
Read it right now.
So this shit made me anxious as fuck. Really, one of the things I did, the only thing I didn't like about the movie, that it was shot very much like, it was presented like a play. And that was the closed-in environment. I know that was done to make you feel like sort of closed in the way he is in this life of his.
Yeah, he's a shut-in now.
But also the way they like the he shoots it very much the way a play is. In fact, like, you know, the door, let's say, being like I don't know the technical terms for stage shit, but like exit or whatever. Like people walking to the door, they stop, have a moment of like clarity, or they have a thought, and then they deliver that thought, and then they exit. Like it was very much like a play. And to me, that was a little bit jarring. And it was also shot like a play in the way the acting was. As good as his acting was, and as good as Ellie was, or Sadie Sink was, they were all like overacting a bit. And that's like a stage thing. Because it's more performative in a play. Than it is typically in film. Like the whole purpose of acting in a movie or a show is to make it as natural as possible. And for those two characters, again, as good as his performance was, it didn't really feel natural to me. He does a lot of really like subtle and nuanced stuff with his eyes. A lot of his emotion is told through his eyes, which was, again, fantastic. But there was a lot of overacting in there. So much so that I actually think, as much as praise he's getting, and again, rightfully so, he should probably win Best Actor 100%.
Yeah.
I think the best actors in this movie were Samantha Morton and Hong Chau. I think they were the only two natural actors in this movie. Especially Samantha Morton, when she came in like late in the movie, she like kind of like blew me away. I was like, oh fuck, I'm like really feeling for this woman.
Yeah, she was good.
Where a lot of times I mentioned I thought she was annoying. Ellie, like, I don't really feel bad for her because she's just being annoying. Like, I understand her situation and I feel bad that happened to her and she's growing up without her dad for sure. But she's just like a fucking incessant bitch.
Yeah.
And like, it was just put on a little too much. They don't give you room to just be like, like, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
Especially when she interacts with like Thomas. When he starts coming around and she's just like, smoke weed or I'm going to tell people you raped me. Or like she's feeding her dad Ambien. Like these aren't things like a normal human being would do.
Right.
So I had a hard time really empathizing with her outside of like just, okay, I get it. She doesn't have a dad. Okay, cool. But the way the character was portrayed, I didn't really care for.
Yeah, she was definitely a little extra. I thought it was funny that Charlie, they tried to portray Charlie as understanding Ellie more than the mother, when the mother was the one raising her for the last fucking 8 years. I thought that was like kind of like, I don't know if you could really understand her more than the person that's been raising her, just because,
well,
she wrote a essay for you 8 years ago.
Yeah, but you can raise somebody and not be there. Like that is possible. Like she was shut off because she's, a drunk.
That's true.
She, for all we know, went to work, came home, drank herself to sleep, and really had no knowledge of what her daughter was up to, or she was basically on her own, because kids have that. So
as you have to take into account what I think, again, the central theme of the film is seeing through the surface level stuff. He sees the better in people generally. We see that from him, but also he views people very differently because he's a teacher. So his brain is wired differently. Teachers have to like find that thing in a student and extract it in order to be a successful teacher. So while she's seeing like her child as like a fucked up individual who doesn't care about anybody and just wants to make people hurt.
Sure.
As you said, like her mother would know her better. She was there with her for 16 years. Well, not necessarily, because she's seeing the surface level stuff. He's not. He saw that essay she wrote way back when.
Yeah.
Like he sees those characteristics in her based off of that writing that only a teacher really could see, because they're analytical. And that's what he's trying to extract from her, because he sees it. He knows it's in her based off of that. I thought that was a really great moment in the movie when you finally realize that
she was the one that wrote it.
Do you ever get the feeling that people are incapable of not caring? People are amazing.
And also, it's worth noting that another thing that I think a lot of people aren't really like grasping is the parallels with Moby Dick. It's not by accident. And the movie's not called The Whale because of his weight. The movie's called The Whale because obviously the term the white whale, that's become synonymous with that unachievable, unattainable thing, that goal that people have. In the story of Moby Dick, Captain Ahab wants to catch this fucking whale, even though he knows it's going to kill him in the end. The whale is not Charlie.
You could argue it's a double entendre.
I don't think it is. The whale, I mean, it is, but I don't. Sure.
I think it is.
The whale is not Charlie. The whale is Ellie. His relationship with his daughter is the white whale. Like, that's what he's trying to achieve.
I think he was like kind of blinded by he fabricated something of what she was. I don't think she was like that great of a person or whatever that he was making her out to be. It was like a fantasy that he concocted these last 8 years because he left her.
Yeah.
And he does want to make up for it. So like his mom, you say that she's only seeing the surface level things, but I think she's also seeing she's seeing the day-to-day, like the real side of her, whereas he has this preconceived thing in his mind.
Well, they leave a lot of it open to interpretation, as I said earlier. So it's like you could easily see both sides of it.
Yeah.
That's why by the end of the movie, I was like, well, what is this really about? I don't really have like a full grasp on it. It's just what I took away from it. And speaking to that, the ending, spoilers, in what they present as his dying moments, he finally breaks through to her. She has that moment where she says, "Daddy, please." Like, just get help, whatever. Like, and he kind of like, they have this moment where she's reading her essay to him, and there's like very warm sunlight spilling through from outside on him. And, and in what looks like, again, on the surface, looks like his death, basically, he floats up and the screen goes white and the credits roll. And again, on the surface, I think it's meant to tell you like, oh, well, he died. But I don't actually think that's the case. I think that's just symbolic for him, like, finally achieving what he wanted. He broke through to his daughter. And and that's him like oh, finally, like this weight has been lifted like off of him, because clearly that's like a big piece of his grief is that he left his daughter. He made this decision to leave his daughter and his wife. So I don't know. That's kind of how I took it. Again, it could go both ways. I honestly
it could go many ways.
Yeah, like I said, the bird thing, like what's that symbolic for? Like the bird's there, and then randomly the plate is broken. At first, I was like, did Ellie break it? I don't think so.
That's what I thought. But
is this all in his head? Like, was he just imagining like his life going well for a minute before he dies, and then that's like the dose of. Is that like the fucking top at the end of Inception? Like, is it gonna wobble? Like, whoa, is it gonna fall?
Right.
Like, I didn't really quite understand, but I don't know. I mean, I kind of hate when movies do that shit where it's like it's just so ambiguous that you leave it with nothing of just like, oh well, this is how I'll never really know.
Yeah, no, I feel that way too. I usually can have a better interpretation, but this one was all over the place.
Yeah, like, and you know, I didn't really quite understand what Thomas's point, like what his purpose to being there was in the movie.
Thomas and his religious shit at the end. I thought he was about to get fucking stabbed.
Just his whole thing was kind of, it just felt a little bit out of place to me. And like, you know, he's going to come inside to a stranger's house and just tell his entire life story to fucking some crazy bitch, telling him to smoke weed or she's going to fucking claim he raped her. Like, I don't know. A lot of it just seemed a little bit bizarre and weird.
Well, truth is stranger than fiction, but like I said, I think this movie is more about showing these characters and their traumas and their potential to get to back to where they wanted to be. You know, Ellie always wanted, to have her dad. That was basically her white whale. Her mom, her white whale was the family that she lost. That basically, this is basically the same. The kid,
we all have
Timothy,
a whale.
his was, sure, and it can change over time. But I don't know. It's you talk about the ending. You don't maybe think it's him dying. It's him finally getting through to his daughter, but it can have multiple meanings. I mean,
100%. Absolutely.
Highly argued, like Shane, the end of Shane, where he's riding off and in the sunset, he's shot. He's kind of hunched over. Is he dead? Is he not dead? You can argue about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But we'll never know. But I still think this is about just showing these characters. This is just characters living their lives. And I don't know. I don't think there's a whole there. I mean, the depth to it is the emotion you feel while you're watching these guys go through their shit.
Well, again, with every situation in the movie, you're getting both sides of the story.
Right.
With him, with Charlie, it's like, I really care about my daughter. I want to reconnect with my daughter. Okay, that's the good side. The bad side is, well, I'm about to die and I'm not going to do anything about it. So do you really care about your daughter then? Same with Liz.
Sure.
Oh, she's super caring and she's like taking care of him and like making him comfortable and trying to help him.
She's actually
but again,
nice,
she's enabling the fuck out of him. Ellie, Brendan Fraser's there arguing on behalf of her, like, no, she's super smart and she's great and she's a great person and she really cares about people. And then in comes her mom and it's like, no, she's a fucking monster. So they're always showing you both sides with every character. I don't know. I wasn't left with like a definitive feeling. And you guys keep saying emotional. Like, I didn't really get emotional through this movie. I didn't like, again, I empathized with everything that everybody was going through, but I was never like super emotional for some reason. And you guys know me, I cry in fucking everything. This didn't really, I got like a little choked up at when she said, daddy, please. That was like the one moment. And that ending where there's like the flashback of them on the beach, which him and his wife talked about was like their happiest moment and all that good stuff. Sure. But like throughout the whole film, I wasn't really like emotional. I feel like everybody in this movie was like super fucking selfish, really.
Yeah.
Like at the end of the day, like his excuse for not like, I don't go to hospitals. Like they never really explained to you why. They kind of just hint at the fact that it's because he has no insurance and doesn't want to waste his $120,000 that he saved up and wants to give to Ellie. That's like a dumb fucking excuse. Personally.
Well, I think it was also the shame of what he had become too. Like he didn't want.
Sure.
Like Dusty said, he's a shut-in at that point. He doesn't want people to see him. And like we said before, everyone's living this facade. Like, so. I don't know.
I mean, again, the movie presents his number one. Again, I get it. It's people are like the whole point is people are complicated and we're all complicated beings. So there's no real like black and white, but like you would think in a situation where like your one desire is to get back in touch with your daughter and have a relationship with her, you'd probably try to not die immediately. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Well, I think his message is to his students that he even tried to portray to Elliot, you know, is we all put on masks for different people. Like if you're out in public and you come across a stranger, you may not be as open or even exposed as you would to say, you know, your best friend lives next door or something. So him and his teachings, and even when his interactions with Elliot, is trying to get people to realize that they need to break through that and, you know, expose yourself and tell me how you really feel. Don't write some bullshit that you think I want to hear. I want to hear what you really think. Let it out. Express yourself.
I need to know that I have done one thing right with my life.
Is the hype around his performance legit? Absolutely. He was great.
Yeah, he was great.
I do think the two adult women in the film, Chau and Samantha Morton, once again, I think they're getting a little bit a shadow cast over them. I haven't really heard much about their performances, and I thought they were great.
Yeah.
I thought everyone was great.
Yeah, no, everybody was very good, but Samantha Morton, I don't know, man. She just like I thought she killed it. Is this movie a great movie? I don't think so. I mean, it's nominated Best Picture, obviously. I don't know if I would put it up there with that, but it's definitely a good movie. It's not great, but it's got a 7.8 on IMDb.
Yeah. I'm right there with IMDb, probably.
Really?
7.5. Yeah.
Yeah, I think 7.5 is a fair. I don't know if it's good enough for an 8, but definitely a 7.5.
Yeah, I think for me it's like was largely carried by the performances, and anytime I like looked past that to try to like figure out what the story was, like it's just a simple story for sure, but I don't know, at the end of it I was just kind of like, "Ooh, okay. Like where did this go?"
Yeah.
I still think it's a good movie. I don't think it's like amazing. I would give it like a 7. I did like the movie. Didn't hate it, but I don't think it didn't blow me away really.
I think that's fair. I will say for such a depressing movie, I really came out of this one in a much better mood than I did with Banshees, for example.
Banshees was pretty fucking depressing.
Banshees put me under the fucking rug. But this one, I was like, oh, okay.
That's a funny
I actually felt closure with this one.
Right. Do you think he died?
I think he died, which is another trauma upon his child, but hey,